Okay, thank you very much. Lots of lively discussions, it seems. If we could just take a moment for 2 or 3 comments from the room, anything that, kind of any insights that you had, or just kind of anything that you discussed that was interesting or relevant for the discussion. Anyone? Yes.
We were just saying that the major issue in getting the students involved is we only have them for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And really by the time they know the place and we know them, they're nearly gone.
Mm-hmm.
So I suppose you're informed this year for next year.
Yeah.
But the current students, you often just don't know to very early.
Yeah, that's certainly a challenge. So having students only for a year makes it difficult to support them or to engage them on an ongoing basis. Any other comments or questions or comments, or reflections on the conversations?
Well, you could involve the students a bit late in the process.
Mm-hmm. We involve them late.
Late.
Uh-huh.
Because how can you identify the issues from your teacher perspective if you don't include the students' voices?
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. We were quite late in terms of waiting for the frame. We had gone through the framing, decided that we needed a policy, and then consulted students. That's a very good point indeed. Any other comments?
So some of the issues that we identified were the importance of being that the issues that are identified are representative of the different perspectives, because different people will have different issues. What might be a very important issue for me may not necessarily be important for you.
Yeah.
Also, the other issue, when you're gathering the evidence, there are people that are more eloquent and articulate than others, and they tend to get heard. There are other people who aren't, and they don't get heard. And those are 2 of the issues.
Yes, another very good point. Some good comments coming out here. Indeed, often it's difficult to engage the silent majority that are perhaps not as vocal and kind of still get their perspective. So lots of challenges, but unfortunately we won't have limited time available, so I'm going to hand over to my colleague Kate for the rest of the session.
Okay, so thank you very much, everyone, for your participation, and thank you very much again for raising these challenges. You're absolutely right. As we were talking about the table at the back, when you've got 21,000 disabled students, it's really tricky to get those voices heard. It really, really can be. And that, speaking of voices, that leads me on to another project that we're running at the moment at the OU, which is about the language of disability and language and identity. So we know, well, everybody's nodding. So we all know in this room then that language of disability is a thorny subject. Like just in comparison here, we're talking about disabled students, whereas in the keynotes they were talking about students with disabilities. There are cultural norms, there are etiquette norms, there's all these kind of things to think about. And it's far more normal to see what not to say than what to actually say. So, before I actually tell you about the project we're doing, I'm going to ask you to, yet again, do another little activity, which just involves speaking to the people around you, maybe in 2s or 3s, to answer 3 questions. First of all, what language do you use to talk about disability? I've put students here, but I'm aware that not everybody might be in an educational context. So if you're with your customers or whoever it is that you engage with. 2, have you ever had any feedback, informal or otherwise, from the students or customers on how they feel about the language that you use? And do you think this impacts on their study or their customer experience? So I'll just give you 2 minutes to talk about that really quickly, and then I'll take any insights that you have. Okay, everybody. It's great to see so many engaged discussions. This is fantastic. We do only have limited time now, I'm afraid, so I'm going to have to call you to a stop there. Any insights, any thoughts, any answers to these questions?
Yeah, please. We were just talking about, this move, very gradual move to ability to needs definition rather than disability. We were just saying how here in Ireland, 2-3 months ago, thankfully, we're celebrating that they announced, the National Council for Special Education, and children in schools would no longer need a diagnosis of a disability to get resources, which was a huge step. And friends from Luxembourg were
That's a very interesting insight. Yeah, we do tend to find this. We have these different language models that we use. We talk about disabilities and abilities. We talk about needs. We talk about obstacles, barriers to study. There's lots of different models that you can use and that you can frame your support around. So that's a really good insight. Thank you. Does anybody else have any points? Have you ever had any feedback from your students or your customers about the kind of language? Yeah, at the back. Sorry.
We were saying that we're from the Rose and Mary Claire, and even though we're from an educational context, we were just saying that it hasn't been something that we've typically discussed with people, but it's probably a conversation that's definitely worth having. So we were talking about Owen and Kate, and we kind of just figured it would probably be down to an individual preference. You know, it would be all about how a person sees themselves and what they would like to put forward. So that's just what we were chatting about.
I think there's a lot of individual preference in there, and that's a real thing. How can we overcome this? How can we create a language model that actually pleases everybody? Well, that's going to be impossible, but the majority of people. Okay, any other comments? I saw you had your hand up before.
Something similar,
Yeah.
The NCBI, the main kind of vision impairment agency here in Ireland, they recently changed the NCBI working for people with sight loss, and there was one particular student I was working with couldn't bear that sight loss, return sight loss.
This deficit model.
Saying that not necessarily people have lost their sight, they might never have had it.
Yeah.
It's just very it's hard to get something that covers everything.
It really is, isn't it? It's a really tricky area. Thank you so much, everyone. Well, the reason this came up for us, it was about a year ago. We were doing a bit of a project to work with disabled students to try to develop a research agenda for the kind of things that disabled students in the Open University wanted to be investigated. And this was a topic that came up. A lot of the students were feeding back that they don't like being called disabled students. They don't like having their name under a big fat D marker or a disability banner. Now that, for me, goes utterly against the social model of disability, so it's a really difficult thing. However, at some point, you've got to think, who are you going to put first, the social model, or are you going to put the people who you're engaging in discussion with first? So, which is why we came up with this project. This is my baby a little bit, this project. This is called ASSIST, and ASSIST stands for a social linguistic study to investigate student-driven terminology. And the idea is that we want to work with our disabled students to generate a language model that the majority of people are comfortable with. So we're doing this in two ways. There's 4 of us on the research team, I'm happy to announce. We are working with stage 1, we're looking at focus groups first of all. We've actually finished the focus groups now. We've worked with 25 disabled students and had quite intensive focus groups. The first part of the focus group was observing the language. So encouraging them to speak freely, to talk about all of the aspects of disability that affect their studies. And then we just sat back, we recorded, we gave it to a transcriber, and now we are very, very deep in the analysis of it. But we had to be really careful at this point not to use any priming language, not to use any words that would kind of give any kind of cues as what language we were expecting people to use. Do you see what I mean? It was quite tricky, it really was. So we had the focus groups, and now the first part of those was the observation part, and then the second part of the focus groups, we gave people the choice of various types of broadcast communication that the OU has with students. One of these was the disability disclosure question, where we asked people to disclose their disability. One was a part on a specific module website where inquirers can go and see, if you have a disability, this is what will affect you on the module. It's actually called the If You Have a Disability section, which makes me cringe. Anyway, so we gave them different types of communication. We asked them to critique those and come up with a different version of them that they would like. So as I said, we're now deep in the analysis, and we're going to use the kind of language the analysis and the kind of language that people have been coming up with to create language models. And this is where we come back to what you were talking about. Needs models, barriers models, obstacles models. Medical model is still making an appearance. There's a lot of people using a medical model. I'm not condoning that at all, but it's something to be aware of. So once we've created these language models, we're going to move on to the second stage of the project, which is where we're going to redo several types of OU communication in these different models and send them out to 8,000 of our students in a survey and ask them to self-declare their preferences. We're working very hard with the students on this, so we've got students engaged in the analysis side of things as well, and we're hoping to get a team of students to help us on the implementation of this as well, although that's a way down the line yet. So, okay. I had another piece of paper on the table for you, which I've now lost. Oh, here we go. I won't have time to actually go through it now in the session because I've had my 5-minute warning. Thank you, Caroline. But maybe this is something that you guys can take away and have a think about, because as part of this project, as part of the rationale for this project, I did a couple of word clouds, the quickest and dirtiest method of discourse analysis you can possibly get. And I created a word cloud of OU online disability guidance, of all of the online guidance I could find, and a word cloud of all of the focus group transcriptions that we had. Feel free to take them away. Feel free to ask me for more. I've got large print versions here. I've also got an online screen reader friendly version as well, if anybody would like me to email you that. Have a look and see if you can see any differences and what messages or perspectives on disability you might gather from these. Anyway, I think because we've only got a couple of minutes left, I think I'll give you time to do that a bit later, and then feel free to approach me at any points for the rest of the next couple of days. But for now, I think we'll close and ask if you've got any questions. Or I can give you time to be looking at these word clouds now if you like instead. Everybody's looking at them. Okay, so if nobody has any questions, then we do have a question. We have a question at the back. We've got 2 minutes remaining and we've got a question. Hooray. Yeah, please. Sorry, I can't hear you. Practical ways that we present content in the focus groups. So how we provided the resources in the focus groups? Or in general? In general. There's a question. How we provide resources. Well, we're a distance learning university, and so a lot of our stuff is done by distance, and by its nature, we have lots of different ways of doing that. So we could do it online, we can do it face-to-face. Is that the kind of thing you meant? Sorry.
I got the sense that you want to know about kind of any lessons that we've learned so far about how we might present that content moving forward based on, is that, I think it's about what you've learned so far from the project about how we might do that better.
In terms of language or in terms of... Maybe we can catch up about it afterwards, because I think we've lost our 1 minute now, but maybe if you've got a bit of time afterwards, we can catch up about that. Thanks. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.